How long do you think you would survive in one of the big global top 10 consulting firms? Have a guess, and I will tell you what the data says. Hey, I'm Maike Imberg, workplace culture and inclusion consultant, and on this channel we talk real about work, about culture, about leadership. Today, in episode 5, we are going to dive deeper into the big world of consulting. Now, the average time of how long employees actually stay is between 2 and 3 years, with the average being 2.7 years. If we think about the wider world of consulting, so boutique firms, mid-sized companies, the average is actually 6 years. So that immediately puts a 3 to 4 year difference in the average of consulting overall compared to only 2 to 3 years in one of the top 10. But why do people leave so fast? Let's have a look. So this company is rated at 4.1 stars and just under 80% would recommend it to a friend. All reviews have been submitted recently in the last couple of weeks. One review gave 3 stars and it basically says it's a mixed experience. The pros are great people, intellectual curiosity, high impact projects. That's what we'd expect, right? The cons, terrible work-life balance, egos from senior people. That's probably also what we would expect. The second review, 2 stars, has the headline, "Don't care about its employees, but it's a great source of learning." Again, that's actually what I have heard as well. So the pros are you will learn a lot in the job, but the cons, if you have any kind of personal problem, you can't let it mess with your job. What about the third one? This one is a 5-star review actually, also from a few weeks ago. And it says, a great place to work. The pros are super smart colleagues and interesting projects. The cons are long working hours and at times very high pressure. Those reviews definitely echo what I hear from a lot of people that have worked for one of the top 10 consulting firms. Now, of course, even to get into one of those, the bar's already set quite high. A lot of different stages to even get that job. And if you might have worked for a boutique company before, a mid-size consultancy, if you haven't gone to that prestige university already with that degree, so if you don't already bring some sort of privilege with you, then often people actually start on a lower salary because they need to prove themselves again to actually get that higher salary that their other more privileged peers might have gotten. It's a model of up or out. 5% of employees in those top 10 consulting firms are actually being asked to leave after a year if they have not performed. And if after a certain time you haven't moved up, you haven't worked so hard with all of these long hours, invested everything, having that client mindset as well, that then you're out. Of course, a lot of people also decide to leave after about 2 to 3 years, as we've seen, because they had enough of the culture. What we're being paid for in those environments is to do the overtime, to work at weekends, to do everything and anything the clients want us to do, even if that is jumping out of the window. That's why people intentionally decide, I'm going to stay here for 2 to 3 years, because then I have one of those big names under my belt and afterwards I can do whatever I want to do. Blogs and insider articles definitely highlight the trade-offs for working in one of those firms, which are often around having to sacrifice in terms of family life, relationships, hobbies, just time for myself and my own well-being. And again, that's reflected in those reviews because somebody says this is a great place to work, but it's also tied with long hours. Surviving in this environment is not about being smart. It's about you tolerating a system that forces you to either move up quickly or to go out. And of course, all of this is absolutely tied with the brand name tax. So if you take your CV and you have one of those company names on your CV and you've worked with them, you managed for 2 to 3 years, then basically you can go anywhere. And the recruiters are going to be like, ooh, yes, we get this person an interview. Where anyone who's more diverse and who cannot actually fulfill the criteria of long working hours, working at weekends, high pressure environment, they're immediately out. I'm talking about people that might be neurodivergent. I'm talking about people with caring responsibilities. I'm talking about people with different visible and invisible disabilities. I'm talking about people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds that might have never gotten the chance to go to a university that's accepted and seen as a good enough university to even get that job in the first place. The joke is, if you do survive a big firm like that for 2 or 3 years, everyone thinks you're brilliant. Yeah, nobody's even questioning that. But if you choose not to go there, or you left because it's actually not aligned with your values, it's actually not aligned with your morale, then you have to work even harder, twice as hard, to prove yourself. Can we really justify leaving one of those top 10 firms? Because isn't that what everybody wants? Even though everybody's so aware of the long working hours. And that's also reflected in those reviews. Because looking at a 2-star, a 3-star, and a 5-star review, the cons are actually quite similar, and they are around that high pressure environment. Well, in any high pressure environment, we can assume there is a low level of psychological safety. Imagine what would happen if we'd actually shift the culture, if we wouldn't expect it of people to have long working hours, day in, day out, if we'd actually empower our employees to say no to client demands, to manage the client's expectations, to actually challenge the client, to make sure that we're delivering an even better solution for them. Isn't that real client mindset? Having challenger safety, being able to innovate together? Imagine a world where those companies would focus on the well-being first and foremost. Imagine a world where psychological safety across those teams is so high that people on average stay for 10 years. Now, think about all of the amazing solutions that those companies could bring. I'm not saying there aren't already amazing solutions out there by them, and a lot of reports that are quite interesting and that do tell us a lot. But we can do even better. And my prediction for the future is we have to do even better. Because you can't be a top 10 global consulting firm with a 4.1 star rating on Glassdoor. That still says a lot about your workplace culture. Now imagine if we shone a light on all of these different departments, areas in the business, everything that makes this big machine as big as it is across the globe. And we'd find all of these pockets of negative behavior, high pressure environments, and all of these opportunities to change that. Now that would really make a big difference, wouldn't it? So what do I need to do as a leader in such a big machine? I need to be bold and brave. I need to put the psychological safety in my team first. And I need to really make sure I'm bringing out the best in people. And part of that is not constantly pushing everybody to do overtime. So that's a good starting point. And of course, if you're an employee in any of these organizations or you have experience of working in any of these organizations, then quite a bit of this will probably sound familiar. And you might even say, you know what, it was still worth it because the job I now hold, I wouldn't have gotten if it wasn't for that experience. And I don't want to take that away from anyone, but I do think we can shift the system, we can shift the culture and actually make sure everybody benefits from it. And that people do not need to sacrifice their family life, their caring responsibilities, their relationships, their hobbies, their own well-being. There is a future where that's possible. Thank you so much for listening. Subscribe, join the conversation, and join us next week for episode 6. Thank you.